you wherever in the world you are. Welcome to the Health Zone Show with Mícheál o Mathúna, where with each episode I explore interesting health and well-being topics with a thought-provoking guest. These topics can range from nutrition, relationships, spirituality, finance, creativity, mental health and much, much more, so that you can live a healthier, happier and more authentic life. Guests on the show vary from health experts, spiritual teachers, finance wizards, sports legends, to ordinary people with extraordinary lives. Find us on facebook.com/The Health Zone Show, or you can also join our Facebook group, The Health Zoners. We're also on Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest under The Health Zone. Check out our new updated website, www.thehealthzoneshow.com, and at the moment you can receive a free copy of my latest ebook, 7 Ways to Boost Your Overall Well-Being when you join The Health Zone.
Paving your way for a healthier day, the Health Zone.
Today I'm talking with Sri Mooji. He's a disciple of Papaji, a devotee of Advaita, and a non-dual master of Rama Maharishi. Hello Mooji, how are you today?
I am real good, thank you. Good.
That's fantastic. So tell me, how did you end up doing this work?
I'd have to admit that it was not, I didn't set out to do it in that way, although as you discover more and more of the truth, there's a natural urge to want to share what you have discovered because it feels so powerful, so genuine, so liberating, see? But to be in the position that I am now, that had not really occurred to me and was not my intention as such. What had happened is that it all started in 1987 when I met a young Christian man who I felt a beautiful connection to him in a very, very quick way. We just met, but I liked his manner. He was not a pushy kind of character. And we met around the subject of art, actually, because I was making stained glass in those days, and he was also a stained glass artist, amongst other things. So it started off in a very, very mutually casual way, but it quickly developed into a more deeper exploration into the search for truth and for God and so on. And he declared from the beginning that he was a Christian, which is I'm familiar with because I'm brought up in a Christian country. Jamaica is a Christian country. But shortly after meeting him, I asked him to pray for me. I was so comfortable with him. And then he said, well, why not now? And I accepted his prayer. But at the end of his praying for me, I myself found that I'm asking also with my own lips, please help me to find what is true. And I say this to you because that was the trigger or the turning point for me in my life, because thereafter a great peace came into my being, and it has remained ever since, in fact, and that was 1987. It doesn't mean that in an instant I became an awakened being, but certainly something had broken through some kind of container of the idea I have of who I am, and it was so compelling, so beautiful, that I really just offered my whole existence to that, and that I call God. So it started off like that in 1987, and then in 1993, circumstances turned out that I had this urge to go to India. I did not study anything about India, nor did I know about Indian religion of such. But some urge was there to go to India because I'd read a book by a great Indian saint called Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, who lived in a place, Calcutta in India. But he had passed away, but I was so familiar, or felt I was so familiar with his background as a great master, that I wanted to visit his place. And that was the motivation and the incentive for me to want to go to India. and so life turned out that I could make that trip, and I went to India. And when I arrived in India, by a stroke of some great auspiciousness, I ended up meeting Sri Punja, otherwise known as Papaji. And through Papaji, some very important changes took place for me. So that's how it started, and that I went to see Papaji twice and spent a good enough period of time with him. And then I returned to London. And while in London, I started to sell incense as a way of making a living, because I didn't feel that anything else was really suitable at this time. And I started selling incense in the local market. I gave up my teaching work because I did not feel for that anymore. And I started to work on the street in my town. And shortly after this, I began to meet people. What happened is that I was really making up these little small cards, small strips of paper with sayings that I felt were very important, and roll them up and put them into little snippets of drinking straws, and I call it Thought for the Day. And anybody could come and take one, whether we're buying incense or not. And it became quite popular with people to come and ask for a thought for the day. And after a while, people started to come genuinely to ask about their own spiritual life and seek advice and so on. And I found that somehow it felt deeply familiar for me, and I started to just say what I felt in my heart, and it has just continued like that.
What do you think is the biggest reason why people don't say what's in their heart?
I feel one is that our culture generally, particularly in the West, does not encourage, because the mind is the region where we often try to control our life. The heart is more the region of ourself which we're not so much in control of. You cannot control your heart. You can feel your heart. You can experience its depth and its broadness. It's from there also that emotions may come to the surface much more freely. And when you're in an environment where you feel a level of trust, so these energies show themselves much more openly. So we are not so much encouraged by our culture to show openly our feelings or deeper feelings so much. Women have greater freedom, it seems, than men, but that's part of it. And also, we are not so much, well, it's linked anyway. We are not so encouraged. We don't have so many, until you become aware of your inner being. When as you journey more inwardly, you feel much more that your heart becomes more open. Then all what I'm speaking becomes much more easy and natural for you. But most people in the speed of their life these days give little attention to their inner life, which is really when they really do need it very much. So also it depends also if you trust the person with whom you're speaking enough to want to share the deeper feelings you have about life. That is also significant.
You might know of Auntie de Mello. Do you know Auntie de Mello?
And Anthony de Mello?
Yeah.
Yes. I'm aware
He's
of
a very
him.
nice quotation, and he said that a nice definition of enlightenment is no longer marching to the drumbeat of society, but
Yes.
dancing to the music that springs up from within.
Yes.
Like, do you think this is true?
Yes. I mean, I'm not saying that society is just negative, but there's a lot of negativity, and in the sense that a lot of energy is geared towards personal satisfaction, and acquiring material things, and seeking a kind of security amongst things, which are more outer, and not so much recognizing our inner wealth, Who tells us that inwardly, as we are, we're wealthy, and wealth in the form of peace and joy and patience and love and compassion and the wisdom and understanding and openness, that these are real, genuine aspects of wealth, human wealth, and not just a car or a house or, lots of money and fame. Those are more outer things, and they're very perishable and momentary. But the inner wealth has more depth, has more satisfaction, more fulfillment, greater joy and happiness. And it's a little bit surprising that we are not more attracted to discovering this more directly rather than going through things necessarily. But in the end, it is all fine, because all rivers are heading towards the ocean.
Thank you. I know you spoke about Papaji, Mooji. What do you think has been your greatest learning from him?
The greatest learning is to not identify with what just arises in your mind, Be aware of it, be aware of that, but also to be aware of yourself as the one that is observing all of this. And this is certainly possible. As we learn more to observe rather than to drop into the reflex to simply identify and to judge, there's a great opportunity to come to the recognition that we are not merely what we see or what we experience or what we feel, that there's an underlying reality that is pure and incorruptible. And the more you begin, one of the beautiful doorways into this experience is to begin to observe without identifying. And that is one of the great pointings of Papaji. He also tells us just to really be quiet, to keep quiet, and don't go with the mind so quickly. Observe its waves, but don't get on board so easy. Stay behind as the witness, as the observer, and gradually you come to recognize a center of great power and stillness within yourself, and you'll have a natural attraction, a natural affinity for that, developing an affinity for that internal power. So that I felt is one of his great teachings, and also he demonstrated that by his very life, you see. So when someone tells you something and their lives demonstrate it, it is very difficult to refute it, because he was the embodiment of that, of what he taught.
And do you think it's this identification with the I is creating a lot of the suffering we're experiencing?
You see, the thing is that when you say I is the most important word in any language and what it represents. And as we look, you see that I is also very. It can mean ego. It can mean the state of presence. It can mean our godly self. So when we say just I, it is important that we qualify what we mean by I. Very often, almost most people, when they speak from the position and refer to themselves as I, for the most part, we are calling I our body and the conditioning that arose with that body. That is what we refer to as I. But that is what I call ego. And what I mean by ego, it is not our true self. It is a constructed self. It is full of psychological mischief also. It is unstable. And it's always like a work in progress. It is always changing. So what spirituality, if it means something, it means that to go beyond the shallow facade of a mere person, or calling yourself a person only, and look, and you'll see that it is available to you to see from a deeper place, wherein the sense of your person is also some kind of image or memory or construct arising in a greater field that is perceiving it. As soon as that begin to come into that recognition, such an expansiveness become, just prevailing, and it's so beautiful. It's one of the most important discoveries a human being can make, where for so long we have been so identified merely by conditioning and reflex and habit and instinct, and training and what I would call programming, that to discover that you're able to just observe these energies or these movements without identifying with them, and that you lose nothing essential by not identifying with them. In fact, you discover an enormous power and presence and joy by simply observing without identifying or combining yourself with the things that you're perceiving. So I would put learning to observe as one of the most crucial pointers, and skill is greater than skill. It is I would say so profound a discovery that a human being can make that it outshines almost every other kind of practice. In fact, it is so all-encompassing. And what is great about it is you can practice it right wherever you are. Begin practicing by practicing I mean just keeping quiet and observing the thoughts as they come without identifying. And in some mysterious way, your powers of concentration begin to develop very, very, very naturally and spontaneously. And the outcome, the fruit of this exercise, these exercises are really, they're really priceless, I would say.
Say, for example, if somebody is experiencing doubt and anxiety in their lives, Mooji,
Yes.
how could they respond with peace to this?
There's a place, first of all, I would not be in a hurry to destroy doubt and anxiety. First of all, in the exercise I've just pointed out, you would not just, the reason why people suffer these waves is because they immediately identify with them. And by identify with them, it is as though you draw them into your being. But if we look at them in a very sober way, like without rushing into the reflex to try and fight against them or to be distracted from them, but simply to allow them to be seen and felt, but you hold back on your reaction. So you actually look at them, you have a chance to see them, not as a blur, but to see them in focus. You will often come to recognize that they are nothing in themselves, and it's about nothing. Sometimes anxiety is arising just out of habit also, because as soon as a certain kind of feeling or thoughts or sensations come or memories, a reaction comes straight away. And some tendency to interpret these reactions or interpret these actions in a negative way is bought into. We buy into it so quickly. As you learn to observe and to be quiet and to observe them, we quickly come to see that they're actually very weak in themselves, very weak thoughts. They only become strong when we identify with them. Then, in a sense, you flick the switch. You see, thoughts arising in consciousness or in your mind, I don't call that thinking. I call thinking when the thoughts arise and you get contact with it and start to believe in it and start to roll with it. Then the process of thinking comes. And doubts is an aspect of, some kind of conceptual engagement, that you're thinking about something and, there's a lack of faith or trust or something, so doubts will come. Anxiety is there because we get stuck in our life and it seems not to be flowing, so we become anxious, you see. And these are states that come because somehow we don't feel centered in our being. And if you're not centered in your being, you're going to be easily destabilized, you're easily be swept away when these currents or these waves of negativity come, rather than just witnessing them and observing their ephemerality, you can say, or their momentariness, and then giving no further power to them. If you simply just identify and give power to them, it will energize and magnify the thing from what it was in the beginning, which is something very superficial, and then it starts to seem like it's something so like an emergency in your mind. So this observation, again, is very important. When you observe, then peace will show its face again. If you don't react and jump into the storm, you'll find that peace is there. Peace is underlying everything. And a quiet joy is there also, you see? So it's not that you need to fight against these waves of doubt. Sometimes doubt is there for a reason, sometimes even good reason. There's a time to doubt. But habitual doubt, that is not good, because it creates a kind of like a negativity inside the being, and stop you from moving with trust in life. And if you cannot move with an openness and a trust towards life, then somehow you will be filled with anxiety very often, you see. Yeah.
They say to wake up is to let go of everything that's keeping us asleep. Do you think this is true?
It sounds nice, but it's impossible to do until you begin to discover that you are not the person you take yourself to be. That is the most fundamental discovery. Because to let go of things that we are habituated to and that we have been grown up with certain kind of addictions in some way, and not necessarily narcotic addictions. I'm talking about addictions to personality and the personal identity. That's a kind of addiction also. To let go of everything, we may try and we may feel some momentary sense of lightness or lightening up, but the mind closes back in again. You see? What I would say, it is important to at least be open to hearing what people like myself are saying, that you are not what you think you are. You're not what you've been conditioned to believe you are. You're not merely your body. The body is fine. The body is very important part of this. Even this self-discovery, the body is very important. The senses are important. The mind is also important. But you're not merely that. They are very, very inadequate representations of what you truly are. You are behind all of this. You are that which witnesses the body and its senses and the mind and its traffic and all of that. And in the beginning, there is some seemingly a kind of deep suspicion or fear to even hear this. For some people, for others, it's very liberating. And they just want to say, please bring me deeper, let me come more deeper into that understanding. Because I've always suspected that, my mind, I cannot trust my mind. And when people speak about their lives, they're talking about their lives as it is portrayed in their mind. But your life is infinitely greater than that. And so, to drop everything, nobody has been able to do that. Understanding is important. As you begin to understand and you receive good guidance and continued support by an authentic master or teacher, or a good friend who has gone further beyond or something, then you can begin to build inside of that. Not that you build, you just begin to somehow evolve much more quickly. But this, one stroke and everything is done. It's not like buying something over the counter that you pay the full cost and you get the full thing. It's not like that. If anything, the purchasing is your sense, your attitude in your heart that this is so important for me, for my existence, that I'm willing to just turn my full attention towards this self-discovery. Now that is the beginning. And also, if your urge inside is genuine, life, believe it or not, will arrange a meeting for you with someone who can guide you further into this understanding and this the depth of this profound awakening, you see. So as I said before, just saying to people just drop things, or that the world is just a dream and it's not real, it's not enough. Because our minds just take that and turn it into just sort of like porridge, basically. I feel that we need, first of all, there must be some curiosity. And if you meet and if you're in a very good supportive spiritual environment, your curiosity will begin to develop into real interest and an attraction. and that attraction will develop even further to be, really sort of like an urgency to find this. It is this kind of attitude that produces the most beautiful fruit, you see. But it cannot just be that we casually discover how to become better in our lives. I feel that your life is worth it. Your life is worth your full attention. Your freedom is worth your full attention. To get the best out of what is possible for a human being, it is worth your full attention. It doesn't mean that you cannot do anything else. In fact, the more you discover who you are, the more multitasking you can do, in fact. It is when we live with limited ideas about ourselves that we suffer from our own self-imagined limitations. But as you discover the broadness, the spontaneity, the immensity of being, then you find that, wait a minute, you're not easily overcome by things. You're not depressed or get tired so easily and stuff. In fact, it is very invigorating on so many levels, you see.
And Mooji, do you think that one of our fundamental purposes in life is to know who we are?
It is, in my view, it is the highest attainment in the human kingdom, to discover ourselves. Because if you don't know who you are, then you're living in a false idea of who you are. And so if you are false, everything you are dealing with, all your ideas are going to be false. I mean, what can be more catastrophic than that? It is important, I feel, but yet at the same time, it is not desperate that people don't desperately want to know who they are. For a while, our goals in life may not be to awaken to the truth. We may not even be aware that there's such a thing. Maybe our goals in life is to, be self-sufficient, or to have your own business, or to get married, or to become famous, or to become a great musician, or something like that. And that is just normal within our present universal paradigms. Allow us to think within the scope of those presentations. But something, in spite of our lack of motivation, some power brings us gradually, because all journeys are towards self-realization. It's just a question of when you begin to become conscious of it, because everyone is seeking to be happy. Everyone is seeking to find some peace. Everyone would love to have such a good life that they want to live forever. And the only way you can live forever is not just in this body only, but in your inmost being. That's what is referred to as what is eternal. There's nothing on your body you can touch and say that is eternal, on your physical body. No part of it is eternal. Nothing, no organ is eternal. Okay? And as for your mind, it is not steady enough to take a second look and stay the same. It is always changing. So this only, if there is something called eternal, it has to be that which is beyond name and form. And as someone begins to make that discovery more deeply into the nature of themselves, they go beyond the limitations of name and form. Our egoic mind is very afraid of this, because it's so attached to the senses and sense objects and to its own private mythology and philosophy and ideologies, that it always has to hold on to something, to be grounded by some concept or some form. But your real being it's infinite. I find myself saying, I don't know who your listeners are, God bless them, I don't know who they are. And maybe what I'm saying right now may not appeal to them, I don't know. But something deep inside them, if they're on a search for growth, for a better life, then the deeper seeds of what I am speaking will touch their life in some way. They may not on the surface understand that. They may say, I don't understand anything that Mooji guy has been talking about. But nevertheless, it will seep in somewhere inside the consciousness. And if you don't just listen just only to my words, if you cannot understand my words, it is okay. But listen inwardly and feel the vibration of what I'm speaking. You probably feel, yes, there is something there, I don't understand it. But this is also a great facilitator to your future discoveries or your eminent discoveries that will take you more deeply into the nature of truth.
And what do you think is God's role in helping us to realize this truth?
God's role is to show you that you are not different from God in your essential being. While we are engaged with the notions of ourselves that we are merely the body and the mind, we will not find what I'm saying appealing. It will seem that you're living in a very tangible world and that you have to plan your future and you have to hold on to your dreams and you have to try and fulfill them only. And that's all that life is, the evidence of your senses and the fact that you are conscious of your mind. That's it. But as we discover more authentically, and we don't stop at the first few small victories, but you keep being pulled more deeply in, you will discover that your inmost being is one with God. And that is the most profound discovering, because, well, they say only he who feels it knows it. When you experience, you'll know it. But people say, well, how do I know I can trust this? Well, how do you know you can trust anything in life? How do you know you can trust anything in life? You go out with a date on someone, you don't know anything about them. How do you know you can trust? Because life is trust. And the greatest trust is a trust that is not interfered with by your mind. The trust that a child has, a kind of like an openness, an innocence. And there's an innocence in us, and it never perishes. It might get hidden, it might get concealed in some way, eclipsed by our conditioning and culture, personal programming or whatever, but it is never destroyed. So all this will begin to reawaken or to reveal themselves as you go more deeply. But it's not going to be paid pennies over the counter for it. It's not anything that human power can just buy. It must come with a genuine urge that arises in your heart that you'd like to. Sometimes it's not pleasant. Sometimes it's out of great pain that such an urge arises in the human life to search for, to come out of pain. You see. So God is there in every twist, every turn. It's just God has always been here. God alone really is here. But it's only when we develop the eyes and the heart to perceive God that you come to know that God is eternally present. And the best place to find him is inside your own heart first. And you find him inside your heart, the God. I'm not talking about God as a person now. And when I say him, I don't mean a male person or father in that way. Spiritual father, spiritual mother, doesn't matter. Or you may call it pure consciousness. It is the same. And that is another thing that is happening, that as you become more mature spiritually, you find that you don't fit into any category particularly. You can understand the varying parts of the expression of God's love. You can find it in many ways the same. So you can call it God, you can call it consciousness, you can call it the great void, you can call it whatever. But what it is really beyond even the names we call it. And that's where we came from. We meaning the expressed God. But the essential God, the essential truth, is not something that you can manipulate. It is always perfect. And because it is always perfect, it cannot grow. It can only be discovered. Whatever can grow is not perfect.
Mooji, what is our true self?
Whatever you can see or perceive through your mind, whatever you can see or perceive or imagine through your mind, that is not you. That is not your essence. Everything that you can perceive belongs to time and change. That which is unchanging, that which is eternal, and yet cannot be measured by form or by name or by time. that deep intuition within you that makes you know that you exist. That is God. That which enables you to contemplate, to think, to remember, that gives the power to generate your life every day. You don't have to walk in and plug yourself in like some battery or get topped up with. You are this life that generates the life itself, the source of the life itself. And the power to contemplate, to meditate, to discover, that power comes from God. But God you cannot see beyond far. He has no distance. He's not like he's so far away you can't see him. He's closer than intimacy. That's why you cannot see. You can only be. You can only realize that is what's underneath your life. That's what's giving your life expression. Like you can feel the sun, but you cannot touch the sun. In the same way, you can feel the presence of God, but you cannot touch it. Not because it's far away, but because you, the one who want to touch it, is itself perceived in it. It is you more than you.
Mooji, what are your thoughts on mental illness?
Mental illness is not just one kind of thing, but I would have to say, like everything else, it is also a manifestation of consciousness, because there are aspects of mental illness which is deeply on the path to spiritual evolution also. Sometimes mental illness comes, like some people experience, like a breakdown, because the way that they were using their minds was too taxing, too distorted, too much. And so they had to blow a fuse. And so something had to deconstruct. And then now it has to somehow reform itself in a new expression. So sometimes depression, as it is interpreted in our society, is given a very, very negative name. But I say all these things are stages rather than fixed states. Every human being experiences a movement of states. You're on the way back to yourself. And it doesn't always look pretty. Sometimes as someone who may have the reason why it is such a what I would call a taboo in our culture is because it's the thing we are most afraid of, because madness represents for most people an absence of self-control. And we want to control, but to over-control is a kind of madness. And it's a worse madness because we all respect it. The madness that people experience, nobody is mad all the time. Madness, like any other state or any sort of mental states or something like this, they're not always the same. They vary. Sometimes they're more intense in their expression, sometimes not at all. Sometimes the individual might be quite normal and even more so in touch with life at an authentic level than the man who's always thinking and strategizing his existence. So mental illness, it varies. It varies very much according to well, I don't want to say according to, because the according to can be so vast. But if there's something important or significant I can share about it, is that it is not our final state. Nobody's mad forever. Nobody's mentally unstable forever. It is also an opportunity for spiritual growth and for introspection. Sometimes it comes out of a deep dissatisfaction with life as it is presently portrayed. Sometimes it comes out of a deep distaste for what has been presented as our options, and something knows it's much deeper, and a deep frustration comes just to cast off all of this. And so you become a kind of misfit in the mind of the greater culture, you may say. But in God's eyes, all are his children. There are even some teachers, some liberated beings, who went through states of intense madness and emotional ordeals, and went through deep states of depression and mental illness for a while. And it kind of purged their minds of the old life, and they came out luminous, in fact. You see? So if anyone feels that they're suffering from some mental illness, it's not the end of the world. Sometimes you are being blessed. Don't listen to what doctors say, please. Yes, don't give them the last word. There are many ways in which our experiences can be interpreted and viewed. Don't give so-called professionals the last word. I am not disrespecting them. They have their role to play too. They are part of the great play too. But then to give them the final word is to write yourself a death sentence for many people. Please don't do that. Be open, because what is impossible with man is possible with God. This is a scripture that I remember from a child. And that really liberates the heart from feeling closed in. Never let someone tell you you are never going to be able to do this. Don't accept from someone there's nothing you can do about this. Okay? If you have the urge inside, you can keep it open. You don't have to, but don't close yourself off. There is a time also to accept, I don't need to go further with this. It's enough of this. We have the power to do that also. But to drink in other people's assessment of you, especially to the negative, I think is very unhealthy. Your life is much vaster than that. Your life has got much more mystery than that. Much more miracles than that is possible in your life.
Do you think that if we all became conscious in the world, that many of the problems in the society we're living in would go?
I think the way that we perceive or conceive of problems will go. Because some things in the world we presently perceive as problems are not problems. But the way in which we look at them will go. And some things which are obviously perversions of life and so on, that will go, of course. There's a saying that from my master's master, all things that is good manifests spontaneously in the awakened mind. Meaning that we don't even have to develop that, because we are inherently good. What has to happen is that we need to discover our real source self, and that goodness will manifest. So yes, you are right. If people became much more conscious of who we are, not just conscious about life, you have to start with yourself, conscious of who you are and your role in this life, it will immediately improve. Not just you, your environment is improved. People around you are inspired, just in the same way that if you're in company that are negative orientated, you don't feel comfortable. If you're in company that is more spiritually uplifting, you will feel uplifted. So, look at the impact of, what someone like a Hitler or a Mussolini or a Idi Amin has done. People remember that. It's terrible. They don't want it again. But look at the impact of what a Christ or a Buddha has had. Also one person. And that even years and years and years, hundreds of years, thousands of years, even for some cases, after those beings left their bodies, they are having new disciples now. Who wants to be a Hitler now? Who wants to be a Mussolini now? Nobody. They want to forget about them. So the whatever a human being has evolved to in the most pure way, others want to emulate them. Of course, there are people who want to emulate negativity as well too. But it is not true to the human spirit. And at some point, those people will be begging to be delivered from their own mistakes. But no one has awakened to the truth and regretted it. I've not heard of anyone in the whole of the history of mankind for whom that's happened to. On the contrary, people who have done terrible things almost always regret it. They regret it. They really are ashamed of it. So this is the indication sufficient to say that if you do good in life, if you discover your true self, the effects of its influence goes a very long way. And of course, what you do that is good within your heart is good for your society, is good for our culture, is good for the world, of course.
How come so many of us can forget that this is the way?
I feel that all the beings who came into life, they came into life to play a role, and not just to play a role, but to learn through that role also. And it's like, I see it as a very, very grand role to come here and to be given bodies that has the capacity, the sensitivity to sense the universe and the world that the body is placed in, the senses and the capacity to think, to imagine, to dream, to project, to understand, to fantasize, to grow, to learn, to discern, to contemplate, to meditate. All these powers, all this facility we have. We only have to learn to use them well. For a while with these bodies, we want to live as though we are a body, enjoy only from the bodily level mostly. And we bring the mind in service to try and get our physical needs and our mental needs and and to fulfill our mental fantasies and emotional fantasies. But that's just living on the surface of our being. As we go in more deeply, we begin to discover that we have greater powers undiscovered till now. And as you become much more aware of them, these are not powers to control people. This rather is the power to set them free, to guide them to light. But first you must find that light yourself. You see? So it's why the proportions are such that it seems as though there are so few awakened beings on the planet at a time, and there are billions of unawakened beings, and I cannot tell you. It may be because we are so much identified with our bodies. We are so much full of ego. And the ego does not have really an aspiration to discover its origin. It wants to discover other things, outer things, things that are bound by time. That is the attraction. And we have a sense of choice to choose the ego's way in some way, or to somehow to choose to be inside the heart. It is not even really a pure and fair choice in some way. And that's why I say it's a play. Because we are compelled to identify with the body. Nobody's ever told us not to identify with the body until it's either too late or feels like it's too late. But always there's a way out of this. I can't tell the full story. I don't know if anyone can tell the full story. I don't even know if there is a story. I can only say that we are blessed with a consciousness that's able to discern between what feels intuitively wrong for us and what feels intuitively right for us. And that we're not always right about that. We have to grow through maturity to become more truthful in it. So your question is it is an ancient question. It is a profound question, but I don't know if we can fully answer why so few awakened beings. Why doesn't more of us wake up? What is important is that all of us are the self, are the pure self. And in various lengths of journeys towards that original remembrance and self-discovery. And that in each form that the consciousness embodies itself, in whatever circumstance it is in, it seems comfortable, reasonably comfortable in its skin for a while. And even whether your role is good or bad, you're still here. Your role has something to do with the bigger picture somehow. For me, that is not enough. It's not enough. In my heart, I would say, something has happened whereby it is not enough to have a body and to have good food and health and friends. It is not enough. Once upon a time, it seemed it was enough. But by the grace of God, it became not enough. I did not realize it was not enough until some power made me realize it is not enough. He touched me from inside. I say, kissed me from inside my being. And then I realized what I had been missing all my life, what I had been searching for, but could not recognize with just my human arrogance. So because of this, I became awake to a deeper reality within myself, and I see that that deeper reality lies within every living being. And that if there's a role, it seems to be that as long as I'm in this body, let it be so that the consciousness or God uses this as an instrument for helping others to see the beauty of the Lord that is sitting inside their heart. That is what I would continue to wish for.
When you pass from this world, Mooji, what would you like people to say about you?
I would more not so much want them to say about me, but what I would want them to learn from me. Because what they say about me is not important, but what they've learned from me is very important. And if what I want them to learn is that, or discovered through me, is to discover the imperishable within themselves. If they learn this, then my heart is satisfied completely. Because that's what I have discovered. And if there's anything I have that I can share, it would be that. So if I feel that beings continue to, and why should they not continue, in fact, continue to make this discovery, to trust it, to open up to the true possibilities for self-discovery in this lifetime, then I would be happy. What they want to say about me, I don't mind about what they say. I hope it's not something untruthful. Of course, I wouldn't like that people come to believe something just untruthful, you may say, because that would mar, that would rob them of what I really came here, I feel, or what my life really is in service of. And that is, I feel the life will be in service of their life in its truest expression and its truest opportunity.
Mooji, if you were to be reincarnated as an animal coming back into this world, which animal would you choose?
Man. He's animal enough. He's the one in whose ability stands the greatest chance to wake up. I will come back as the animal called man.
I know you were in Ireland about 10 years ago. Would you consider coming back to Ireland again?
I love the Irish. I find them, they are so warm and so genuine. The Irish people were my first escorts and hosts. They were the first that began to train me, to give me the experience of being with people, because I did not know how to be with people in this way. And I was slowly learning through them, because the light was inside my heart, but I did not know how to let it out. And so I began somehow, with their grace and their love, to find a way of expressing that light, which has continued to grow more and more as time went on. But it started in the Irish bosom. I will come back.
Mooji, finally, if somebody wanted to find out more about your work or even the books you've written, how could they do it?
We do have a website, and the website is www.mooji, mooji.org. If they start there, then they'll have access to many things. Also, lots of YouTubes. You can go to any YouTube. If you put Mooji G, Moojiji, or even just Mooji, it will give you it. You will enter into a domain that has a lot of videos. We have a lot of videos, and of varying kinds. Also, there's guided meditations and stuff like that, and so on. So that can be a very good asset. There's also one called Mooji.tv as well too that you can they can log into. Yes.
Thanks so much for your time, Mooji. I really enjoyed it.
You did? Thank you, Mícheál, because each time we I have a conversation or interview like this, something new, a new aspect comes out, which I'm not conscious, I'm not thinking about them, but it's like the relationship or the connection that happens during this time brings out another facet of something. And I hear it with my own ears as it comes out, because, as I said before, I never come to an interview already planned what I'm going to say. I discover the interviewer and the interviewee also in the interview. So thank you for the opportunity to speak with your listeners, and I hope they derive something from it. And I would like to just say to every blessing for your show and your program, the Health Zone, and all who follow it daily or whatever, however often you put it on. So thank you for the chance to come on and talk with you.
You're very welcome. Thank you too.
Very good. Okay, have a nice day.
Same to you, Mooji. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye for now.
The health zone. The health zone. Ooh, the health zone.
Thanks for listening to another inspiring and thought-provoking show of The Health Zone. I'm Mícheál Mathúna. Just to remind you, you can find us on facebook.com/The Health Zone Show, or you can join our Facebook group, The Health Zoners. We're also on Twitter, Instagram and Pinterest under The Health Zone. To gain further invaluable resources on health and well-being, go to our website www.thehealthzoneshow.com. When you're on there, join The Health Zone and you'll receive a free copy of my latest ebook, 7 Ways to Boost Your Overall Well-Being. Finally, I would love to hear any feedback you may have on the show, and even if there are any particular guests or topics which you're interested in, please email me on tunein@thehealthzoneshow.com. Until next time, this is Mícheál. Thanks for listening, and I wish you a very healthy, happy and authentic week.
Paving your way